He was a man of immense size and charm, who used fear and violence to rule with an iron fist. The world would know him simply as the Butcher of Uganda. Born around 1925, Idi Amin found his calling in the British colonial army, gaining a reputation as a formidable boxer and a soldier with a cruel streak. Rising through the ranks, he served the British in campaigns against Somali rebels. His colonial masters saw him as a useful, if brutal, tool. After Uganda's independence in 1962, Amin became a key ally to the new Prime Minister, Milton Obote. He was promoted to commander of the army. By 1971, Obote began to see Amin as a threat and planned to arrest him. But Amin, with his network of loyalists, decided to strike first. On January 25, 1971, while Obote was abroad, Amin launched a military coup. His troops seized key installations in Kampala. Initially, he was welcomed by many. He promised to restore democracy and end Obote's corruption. The reality would be a descent into unparalleled madness. His rule was a bizarre theater of narcissism. He awarded himself countless fake medals and grandiose titles, cultivating a cult of personality. He solidified power by creating brutal secret police agencies, which became synonymous with torture and disappearances. The true scale of the horror is still unknown, but it's estimated that between 80,000 and 500,000 Ugandans were killed on his orders. In 1972, he launched an economic war, expelling all Asians from Uganda. He gave them 90 days to leave, seizing their businesses and property. Nearly 80,000 people of Indian and Pakistani descent were forced to flee, their thriving businesses handed out to Amin's supporters, which crashed the economy. His delusions of grandeur knew no bounds. He once sent a telegram to the British Queen, inviting her to come to Uganda to experience a real man's government. He severed ties with Israel and aligned with Libya's Muammar Gaddafi and the Soviet Union, embracing a radical anti-Western stance. Stories of his extreme brutality became legend. He was rumored to be a cannibal who kept the heads of his enemies in a freezer, though this was never proven. His paranoia consumed his own government. Ministers and generals were routinely humiliated, tortured, and executed for alleged disloyalty. In 1977, he murdered the Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, Janani Luwum, after he dared to speak out against the regime's human rights abuses. His aggression finally turned outward. In 1978, seeking to distract from domestic unrest, he ordered an invasion of Tanzania. This was his fatal mistake. The Tanzanian army, joined by Ugandan exiles, fought back and began a counter-invasion to liberate Uganda. As the Tanzania People's Defense Force and the Uganda National Liberation Army advanced, Amin's regime began to crumble. His soldiers deserted en masse. On April 11, 1979, after the fall of Kampala, Amin fled the capital. He escaped first to Libya, then to Iraq, and finally found permanent exile in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia granted him asylum on the condition he stay out of politics. He lived a quiet but monitored life in Jeddah for the next 24 years. Idi Amin died on August 16, 2003, of multiple organ failure. He never expressed remorse and was never held accountable for his crimes in an international court. His escape from justice remains a dark chapter. Unlike other 20th century tyrants, he never faced a tribunal for the atrocities committed under his rule. His legacy is a traumatized nation. He left Uganda's economy in ruins and its social fabric torn by violence and suspicion that took decades to heal. His story entered global pop culture with films like The Last King of Scotland, which immortalized his terrifying and unpredictable nature. Historians debate his psychology, a complex mix of charisma, profound insecurity, intelligence, and sheer brutality, all amplified by absolute power. Today, Uganda has moved on, but the ghost of Idi Amin serves as a permanent warning of how a single individual, backed by military might and fear, can bring a nation to its knees. His rule is a case study in how Cold War politics allowed regional despots to thrive, as world powers turned a blind eye to atrocities for geopolitical gain. The machinery of his terror was systematic. It relied on ethnic rivalries, a culture of impunity, and the creation of multiple competing security agencies. He often used populist justifications for his violence, like public executions of criminals, to create a veneer of law and order that masked his arbitrary terror. The expulsion of the Asians, coupled with rampant corruption and the collapse of the rule of law, led to hyperinflation and the destruction of Uganda's economy. His invasion of Tanzania was the final act of a failing regime, a desperate gamble that exposed his military's weakness and led to his ultimate downfall. Decades later, Uganda is still exhuming mass graves. Forensic experts work to identify remains, giving families long-awaited answers and proper burials. For thousands of families, the terror never ended. They still don't know what happened to their loved ones, living in a perpetual state of uncertainty and trauma. The economic devastation outlived Amin. The businesses he seized were given to his supporters, creating a culture of crony capitalism that still affects Uganda's economy today. By murdering intellectuals and professionals, Amin destroyed the country's educated class. The brain drain that began under him continues to hinder development. The Ugandan military spent decades rebuilding its reputation and professionalism after Amin turned it into his personal instrument of terror and corruption. Most chillingly, Amin's playbook, using ethnic divisions, fake news, and paramilitary groups, remains a template for aspiring autocrats across Africa and beyond. A disturbing revisionist trend has emerged online, with some portraying Amin as a nationalist hero and downplaying the scale of his atrocities. A new generation of Ugandan artists and activists now fights to preserve the memory of what happened, ensuring the truth isn't lost to time or distortion. The international community's failure to bring Amin to justice set a dangerous precedent, showing that geopolitics often trumps human rights. In Ugandan schools, teaching about this period remains challenging. How do you explain such horror to children without creating lasting national shame? Psychologists now study how the collective trauma of Amin's reign affects second and third generations, shaping parenting styles, trust in institutions, and national identity. The true measure of Amin's brutality isn't just in the bodies he left behind, but in the invisible wounds that continue to shape Uganda decades after his death. Who do you think was history's most brutal ruler? Share in comments. Subscribe for more explorations of history's most compelling and dark figures.